All right, good afternoon, everyone. Now we're going to go ahead and get started on our webinar here. My name is Joshua, and I'm going to be your presenter today. I did a quick sound check before we started. Hopefully everyone can hear me okay. It is promptly 1 p.m. Eastern Time today. We're going to be working together for about the next 20 minutes or so. Wherever I am, I will definitely finish up my topic by no later than 20 after, earlier, if the topic warrants it. But I will be happy to stick around and answer questions that you have. So I won't be darting out and closing the room right away at 20 after. But if ever at any time you've seen what you came to see as in the webinar event, you may certainly exit and leave the webinar at any time. And as always, thank you in advance for attending here with us today. Again, if you have questions for me or you've never attended a webinar event, please type in your questions to the questions portion of the webinar control panel. I will do my best to keep an eye on those and try to find a good time to answer those. I'll try to repeat the question for everyone's benefit and then see what I can't do to answer it. As we always have to ask in these webinar events, please keep your questions to the topic at hand. The presenters, myself included, I'm really knowledgeable about church windows, but I am prepared for today's topic only, and my data and all of my, my mindset and everything else are not necessarily prepared for questions that you have for other portions of the software. If, again, you're on support with us and you have questions about it, please call us, 800-533-5227, and one of our technicians, including myself, will be happy to help you. All right. So the topic for today was payroll transferring to accounting and corrections. And I think that was a little ambiguous. I didn't notice it when we developed it, but the corrections portion of that refers to inconsistencies about payroll and how it transferred to accounting. Not necessarily, I guess that could impact corrections in accounting, but I think that corrections portion of that is really talking about how payroll interfaces to accounting and if there are inconsistencies with regards to that. Okay. The best way to look and determine to see what payroll thinks happened, of course, with regards to accounting is what we call the accounting transfer audit report. When you transfer a payroll over to accounting and it says, transaction numbers, X through Z, were created, print, that accounting transfer audit report is the report that the system is going to ask you to, or is printing for you. You can, of course, access that report in another way, too, by going to Reports in Payroll. And we see right here, about halfway down, the option called Accounting Transfer Audit Report. As it sort of alludes to in the title, it is the report that allows us to cross-reference our information in payroll with how it went over to accounting. So when I click on that, it asks, which employees do I want to see or departments. In this case, our process date reveals all of our pay dates in our current payroll year. So here I'm going to go ahead and choose, say, February 29th. One of the new features in our payroll 2016 is this ability to change the sort order for this report. So it defaults to alphabetical by employee or contractor name, but you can change it to transaction number or check or sequence number if you wish. For the purposes of today's webinar, though, I'm going to go ahead and change it to transaction number. And then once we've chosen our process date, we simply click on Next. To me personally, folks, this is one of the most powerful reports in Church Windows, at least certainly with regards to payroll in Church Windows. Let's go ahead and maximize that screen. So a few things about this report that are really important are, first of all, a lot of folks overlook this. In the upper left corner, we have the column header called Posted to CW. That if we zoom in on that, let me see if I can zoom in, it says Posted to CW. And notice it's going to say yes or no. If it says no, it's basically telling us that the payroll was never transferred over to accounting. Okay, for whatever reason. If it says no, then we will not see any any information in our transaction number column here. It will only create those transaction numbers when the payroll itself has been transferred over to accounting. Okay? So the two kind of go hand in hand. Posted to CW, yes, we should see transaction numbers. Posted to CW, no, we should see no transaction numbers. Okay? So one of two things could have occurred at that point. Okay? We could have had the payroll, and it was when we got to the transfer to accounting window, we could have highlighted that date and clicked the delete button. Okay? Basically saying we weren't planning on or not going to transfer that payroll over to accounting. Or more likely what is to occur is that you'll oftentimes, and we don't have it in the data today, is that when you launch payroll, a message will pop up and say, pending payroll entries exist that have not been transferred to accounting. At which point then we would click on payroll and our transfer to accounting screen would be available, and perhaps it's that date. And, let's kind of go through one real quick here. So let's see if we can produce one here. And we're just going to enter some dummy check numbers here. And we're going to say that they've printed. And we finish. So here it is. Here's my transfer to accounting window. And we're not going to transfer that. We're just going to exit all the way out, and I'm going to show you the message that I'm talking about. It pops up with a message here that says, posted payroll exists that has not been transferred to accounting. So the system's really good about telling us that. When I go now to my reports and my accounting transfer audit report, and I choose the one dated April 20th, the one that I posted just today, right here, and we go to next, and we zoom in on our column here. Again, as I was stating before was true, is it says posted to CW no, and there are no transaction numbers. So again, those two columns go hand in hand. If one says yes, the other one has to be populated. If it says no, the other one should not have anything in it, will not have anything in it. Okay? So again, we're just kind of pointing out some things that in the reports will help you explain or help you understand as the everyday user what may have transpired here. So if I go, well, hey, no, that didn't transfer over to accounting. I wonder why. I might be able to close out, and if I wasn't paying attention to my message, I can click on payroll and notice transfer to accounting is available. Okay? So when I click on that, it opens up my transfer to accounting, and it will allow me to complete this transfer to create new transaction numbers. However, again, under some rare circumstances, what happens is a user by mistake will often come in here and they'll click this delete button here at the top right rather than transfer. Okay? They'll just go click on delete, and it'll say delete all transfers entries for 420. Deleting entries will not affect payroll posted for this date, and I click yes. Okay? When I go back to my accounting transfer audit report again, and I choose April 20th, guess what? It's still going to say, notice April 20th isn't in the menu. I'm sorry, I stand corrected. So that basically confirms right here there's nothing in April between the 15th and the 30th. So that tells me this was not calculated or not transferred over to accounting. It shows up in my pay as my pay dates and added to my payroll. Okay? Okay, so but it was never transferred. Logically, one of the options that folks will often want to steer folks to here is, well, can I use the reactivate pay for reposting function here under system administration? So if I go to system administration, I do have this option here down in our menu called reactivate pay for reposting. So that's actually, I use this function a lot more than probably you suspect we do. And where a common circumstance like this occurs where we might do the reactivate pay for reposting, and not for reposting to payroll, but for retransferring over to accounting, is when, say, we've had to restore an accounting data file from a month or a couple months back, or maybe even longer. that doesn't have those payroll or has missing transactions in it, this reactivate pay for reposting allows us to quickly and easily reactivate our payrolls without re-enter them and recalculating them and re-entering check numbers, and simply create new transactions in our accounting module. Okay. But when we click on reactivate pay for reposting, specifically in an attempt to try to get this pay date for April 20th to show up and transfer over to accounting, it doesn't appear in the list. Okay, so notice again, we scroll down to April and we've got April 15th and April 30th. And the reason why that is when you transferred it over to, and when we got to that transfer screen and we deleted that, we were saying in essence, we don't want this pay to ever show up in accounting. All right. So the only way to have that occur now, to get that payroll to transfer over to accounting for April 20th, would be to go to payroll, void individual pay, isolate our April 20th date. It shows here it was definitely posted in payroll with check numbers. Select all, void it, click OK. Once they're voided, then go back in and recalculate our payroll in its entirety for April 20th. Recalculate it, replug in my check numbers, and then it will allow me to transfer it over to accounting. Okay. So again, all of that information was determined based on what we found in our accounting transfer audit report screen. Did the pay date show up there? If not, but yet it showed up on our void individual pay screen, it was more than likely deleted, and you'd have to void it and recalculate it. Okay. Another common problem that occurs with regards to accounting. Okay, let's go back into one of our accounting transfer audit reports, and again, we're going to look at a pay date earlier in the year. So let's say we're going to go back and look at our one for February 29th, and we're going to list it by employee name. Okay. So we got a number of employees here, 2 per page. So we're going to say, for example, that right here, our Jerry Williams, our last employee here on page 3, is our supply pastor. Okay. And right here, his base salary on February 29th was transferred over to our church administrator's salary expense account and not to the supply pastor's base salary expense. Okay. So how do we deal with that? Essentially, we charged it to the wrong expense account. Okay. It happens all the time where we didn't set up the employee properly to link to their proper accounts in accounting. So there's a couple different ways we can deal with this. We could go through the process of voiding the pay for Jerry, recalculating it, retransferring it over to accounting. Okay. Definitely we can do that. But that's an awful lot of work. If we want the payroll figures or the payroll account to show up here correctly as that account, that's the only way to do it. I'd have to void this pay for Jerry, recalculate it, and in between doing the voiding and the recalculating it, I'd want to make sure that his employee file was linked to the proper expense account. So in order to do that, I would click Finish through the report. I would go over to System Administration, Account Number Setup. Takes a second. We'll find Jerry from the list. Here's Jerry. And right here under Regular, we see the expense account is wrong right there. Okay. So we would simply click in there and we would see it says Church Administrator Salary. So here I would go down to my supply pastor expense. What is that? 510,190. There it is, supply pastor. And I would need to do the same thing for any of the other expense accounts for regular base salary, etc. for him, overtime, additional, anything else. It doesn't change them for all of them. Okay, so if those should be true for any of these pay types or these pay earnings, I would need to change those for all of them. Okay. Now again, that's only helpful for me for payrolls that are passed today. Okay, so changing this expense account itself is only going to help me for payrolls that I'm calculating for Jerry from, March 20th of 2016 and beyond. It doesn't change anything for past payrolls. So again, if I wanted to correct that in payroll for the past payrolls, I would have to go to payroll, void individual pay, find each one of the pay dates for where he was paid, highlight his paycheck. Oops, I'm sorry. He's an EFT payroll employee, so we'd have to go to void EFT pays. So you notice here, Jerry's here, so I can highlight each one of these. Now and again, if they're EFT, it only allows me to do all of my employees. So most likely, I probably would live with my payroll reports being inconsistent in this case, and I would fix accounting manually. So what I mean by that is, when I determined how much was charged to the expense account incorrectly, I would close out of payroll, jump over to accounting, and I would simply post a journal entry or a transfer to move those balances either monthly or for the whole year from the wrong expense account to the correct expense account. Okay, I would go into my reports in payroll and find out what my totals were there. The other option I would have while I'm here in accounting would be I could go in and I can reverse all of the payroll transactions for a particular pay date here, and I could consider using my reactivate pay for reposting function. Okay. I can go, okay, I want to look at I want to void all of my payroll for February 29th, 2016. If I could get my dates right here. Through February 29th, 2016, clear all and check just payroll. And I could go down the list here and just simply manually reverse each one of these transactions. Okay. The reason being on this is why, folks are probably going, well, Josh, why would you have to reverse all of those payrolls? Well, because even though I've only got one employee who's wrong, my reactivate pay for reposting function in payroll only allows me to reactivate the pay for an entire pay date. I can't just be selective with one employee. So if I go reactivate pay for reposting, we're going to choose February 29th. Here's all of my employees, including my 2 EFT employees. But notice I'm trying to click on that with my mouse, and I can't click on just one employee. It's all or nothing. Okay, so if I'm prepared to void reverse all of those payroll transactions in accounting, which I can do, okay, then I could come over and reactivate the entire pay date and send it over to accounting to create an entirely new set of transactions. Okay. There's some things that really have to be understood about this reactivate pay for reposting. First of all, it's all or nothing. I can't do just one employee. I have to do all of them. And the second thing that we have to be aware of is it doesn't recognize any previous transactions which were already transferred over to accounting. So if I were to reactivate this pay, it would create there would be two sets of payroll transactions in my accounting module for February 29th. The original set that I had originally had and transferred when I had originally calculated that pay, and the new set when I had reactivated my pay and reposted it. It doesn't detect that, right now at least, it doesn't detect that there are previous payroll transactions in accounting. So you have to exert enormous caution when dealing with this reactivate pay for reposting. And the other thing that we have to keep in mind here is, where are we regarding bank reconciliations? If again I'm dealing with the payroll, where I've got a wrong account in, say February of 2016, and I'm already reconciled through my bank, with my bank statement and accounting, there is nothing I'm going to do that's going to reverse any of those transactions in my payroll or in my accounting module at all. Because if I do and I repost them, all of a sudden I'm going to be seeing some February paychecks on my, April bank reconciliation that have already cleared. So again, that would be a situation where I would go over to accounting and manually correct my books, leaving payroll as it is, leaving accounting as is, and making just a simple adjustment to fix it. Ensuring that my account number set up here for the employee was linked to the proper accounts for future. So the problem doesn't persist. I'm not continuing to transfer my payroll to the wrong accounts. It doesn't matter what type of an account it is. My bank reconciliation is what guides me in terms of what I'm going to be doing to affect my accounts. I'm not going to do anything to affect cash if I'm reconciled. So, folks, it's 20 minutes after. I've kind of gone through some things. I hope they've been helpful for us here. I'm going to be happy to stick around and see what I can't do to answer questions. But, again, if you're on support, and you're unclear about it, call us. It's really hard for the information in payroll and accounting to be mismatched. You know what I mean? Is if I go into my accounting transfer audit report and I run my report for a particular pay date and it says posted to CW, yes, and it shows me the transaction numbers with the appropriate accounts, and you go over to accounting and you see something different from that, then you need to call us. Okay? Either we're transferring payroll to a different installation of Church Windows, or somebody's restored a backup of their data file that they shouldn't have, you know what I mean, either of accounting or payroll that they shouldn't have restored. Something is wrong. But if this information is incorrect, it becomes more than just about being the wrong accounts. Okay? All right. So if you need to leave the webinar, thank you so much. We'll see you at another future Church Windows webinar event. And let me take a look and see what else we've got here in our questions. Oh, yeah, I'm sorry, Aaron. I don't know what's going on with the audio. You're the only one that was stating that was occurring, so I'm wondering if maybe there was something like a internet connection issue for you there. There will be a recording of this webinar released on our website at some point here soon. Okay, I'm being asked, if the amounts are correct and only the account has to be changed, is it sufficient to make a journal entry and leave everything else as is? Susan, that's how I would handle it. Again, depends on, again, the age of the transaction. Again, we're not reinventing the wheel here. You're welcome. I wish I could tell you more, Aaron. Yes, if payroll, again, we can't forget that also in payroll, we've got, what tax forms have we already, submitted? 941s and, WC3s and things like that. If I'm reversing or voiding anything in payroll and I don't get that information entered into the system or payroll properly, who knows what I could be messing up in terms of my payroll reports. So if I can quickly and easily correct the problem in accounting by simply posting a journal entry or transfer between expenses, and then by going into my system administration account number setup and ensuring that for future I'm not perpetuating the problem, I'm good with that. I'm all about the path of least resistance. As long as my treasurer's report is correct in accounting, so my budget may be correct with regards to those, you bet, no question. If I go over to accounting now, if I go, okay, well, what do I do on my journal entries? I would go to transactions, other, journal entry, so in this case, I could backdate this to February if I want, and put in comments, adjustment for, misposted payroll expense, and I would choose my administrator salary, church administrator expense account. I'm going to credit that account for the amount of that pay. I think it was $1,575. And then I'm going to come down here and choose my supply pastor. There's my supply. No, it's not. Supply pastor. I don't know what it is with my L's and my K's here. I'm just having all kinds of problems with that today. Sorry, folks. Let's try this again. There's my supply pastor, and I'm going to debit that amount for the amount of the base salary. And when I look at my treasurer's report for the month of February, it is going to look as though everything posted to those accounts exactly right. All I've done is transfer the balance. So, yeah, again, folks, while we want payroll and accounting to match, as long as the figures match, those are what are important. The accounts that we're transferring to, sometimes those mistakes happen. There are ways to fix those, but again, you have to be aware and always be mindful of what else you might be affecting in your other databases, and most particularly accounting. Great question. All right, I'm looking to see if there's any other questions coming in, and I'm simply not seeing anything. It looks like folks are darting out pretty quickly. I just want to give some folks some time to enter questions. Those sometimes can be lengthy. All right. Well, I'm seeing folks kind of darting out here. You're welcome, Susan. Thank you. So I'm going to go ahead and end the webinar for everybody. And we've got other webinar events now and through the month of May. We hope to see you at another future event. Thank you all so much. Talk to you then. Take care. Bye-bye.